Okay, hello everybody. Here next, a new and thoroughly noiseless chair that I'm so far enjoying. Here to review Amerika by Franz Kafka. This is a cover that I don't actually, that I didn't read it in. This is actually a different copy, an older one. I actually had a new, pretty interesting version of it that had like nice contemporary style illustrations that kind of fit. In fact, the illustrations were kind of like a little bit grotesque and a little bit of that grotesque body trope from what I remember. But they had they fit actually with the storyline, which is, knowing Kafka can be a little bit darker in tone. I think it actually fit, but they didn't take up too much space though. They were like every once in a few chapters they'd show an illustration. So, and I remember reading it probably almost 4 years ago now, because I remember I traveled to Ireland with it, like for just a 1 week little stay, sojourning up there, and yeah, reading it on the airplane. I just remember being really kind of on the verge of laughing here and there. Like it's been described as one of Kafka's more upbeat books, even though it does have kind of like starts out with like kind of unsure circumstances. Like there's a lot of the unknown, and Kafka was apparently a fan of like travel literature, like the kind of stuff that Benjamin Franklin wrote, like in his travelogues and stuff like that, and apparently also like pretty big Dickens fan too, like Charles Dickens, like, and you get that too from this. This is one of his, I think, his earlier novels. So I don't know if he established his voice quite as much as he had with, say, The Metamorphosis or The Castle, or some of his more kind of thematic books. Not to say this is not thematic, but I feel like people kind of are quick to write it off in the same way people write off like his really first work, the description of a struggle, in the sense that that was his something he wrote as far back as his early days as a writer and / student. You think at a university, I think he was like only in his early 20s or so. So I mean, you can kind of be forgiven for not finding your voice and having. And I'm gonna at some point review that next, but because it was part of the 100 books I read in 2021 that I was gonna eventually finish that video too, but that kind of got locked in editing hell. So, well, actually, I haven't filmed it yet, the rest of it, so I might just redo that entirely. But where was I? Anyway, so it's about Amerika. It concerns a young man by the name of Karl Rossmann. He's a teenager. I think he's like 16 or 17, I think. And he's just been left, he's just kind of recovering from like this very kind of scandalous affair that he had with when his landlady, or no, not maid or cleaning lady, actually like seduced him, and she got pregnant because of it. And because of that, he's kind of like running from he's kind of like running kind of shame, it's like his tail between his legs, so to speak, trying to kind of skirt this under, trying to forget about it, and the shame that I guess that it brought upon his family. So he's kind of and right away you get that kind of classic Kafka kind of main character where he's somebody that you both identify with, but at the same time are a little bit not sure how much you actually relate to him. Like he's kind of gets himself in a little bit of trouble in the way that you might not imagine yourself to do. So it's a bit of that, I don't know, say picaresque type of hero or heroine or whatever. But I'm not sure how much of that applies to Karl Rossmann, but he definitely does have some dirt, I think. So he's running from that, and he's on a ship, and then he befriends a stoker on the ship, who he identifies a lot with him because he's part of the working class. He's like, I can actually relate to this person because I'm kind of running away. And then they talk, and they have a big talk, and they connect, and eventually he finds out that his uncle Jacob is I think, a senator. He's like a respected senator that is that offers to that is they're on the very same ship, that has some like say and over his Rossmann's father, and he's like trying to, well, I'll take care for you for now. So he offers to take him in, and he lives in New York City, and that's where Rossmann stays for a little bit. And there's a really kind of like weird part that I couldn't quite figure out. There was like something like happening with his niece there that he was like, I think not, he didn't sit well with her. I can't quite remember what happened, but I do remember like him describing like kind of like this like there's a lot of hope in that. I do remember there's like a lot of promise and potential in this house. Like he was like, there was like a new piano that he was planning on learning, and then there was like the vastness of the hallways and the corridors and like this little house that and you kind of get like the sense that maybe Kafka, since he never went to America himself, he was writing from the point of view of somebody who's like from the outside, maybe looking at a little bit of the old trope of like the grass is greener on the other side, kind of seeing maybe beyond. From what I gather from his life is that after reading his other works, is like that he was kind of like stuck in this kind of bureaucratic, cloistered, like there wasn't a lot of room for like vacation. Like he hardly ever got like more than maybe a week's long vacation every once in a while. So there's a lot of like a fear and an insecurity of like not having something outside, like kind of like a longing for something that's like outside. So maybe that is what America kind of represents in this idea of like, it's like America, like this place. There's like, it's like maybe it's wide open and it's vast and it's this, and then you kind of realize that maybe it's like, from my experience in New York or whatever, and like seeing New York and seeing how just like bustling and endless it is. It's such a busy city, and you're just like, no, maybe I'm not sure if it's like that better, but not much better. But like then again, this was like over 100 years ago, so. Maybe things were different. I'm not sure at the turn of the century how different things were, but yeah, it's like it just he talks about it with so much promise and kind of hope, but then all of a sudden he's like, because of this thing with his niece, he gets in I think a falling out with her, and that puts him on bad terms with his uncle. So his uncle's like kicks him out and kind of throws him to the wolves, from what I remember. And like he kind of just goes into the streets, and he's like, I don't know, I guess I'll just have to figure out how to make my way, on the street savvy side of me, try to see where that goes. And then he tries doing that, and then it's basically he runs into these two other young boys who are drifters that are named Robinson and Telemark. I'm assuming that it might have said in the book, but it's been, like I said, it's been for a few years. So I think what their deal was they were also immigrants as well, because of the somewhat foreign names. I get maybe they're from like England or something like that. But they're not up to no good. They're kind of they're very kind of like backstabbing, not like in a dramatic, kind of like tragic sense, but like more like in a they're kind of just like vain, and they basically live day to day. Like they just like, whatever way I can get my bread for the day and just not think of anything else. I don't care who I have to step on. And then Carl becomes the kind of unwitting embodiment of the man who's just kind of stepped on, and like by these two boys, and they're like, well, they kind of gather under false pretenses and kind of taking advantage of this naivety of him, and they're like, well, we'll get you a nice place to stay, and and then he's like, they basically at some point, I think just leave him to basically leave him to the wolves. I can't remember the details, but like then Roseman starts working at a hotel. I think it's called the Hotel Occidental, as a lift boy, and I get kind of minor Wes Anderson vibes from that Grand Budapest Hotel type of thing. But yeah, it's like I just thought it was interesting that like the job he has is actually quite funny, and there's a lot of different humorous incidental things that happen. There's a lot of like a playing into Kafka in this one, shows like a lighthearted look into like the incidental, or like the a kind of like the serendipitous, like things, things that work out in his favor kind of incidentally, but like also just as easily things fall out of his favor. So it's like kind of him at the whims of fate type of thing, which is why maybe that's why he was a fan of travel logs, because maybe they kind of there was something that was expressed like that in that kind of same idea. But I think at this hotel that he's working at, it's like very strict and austere. There's a lot of like kind of like shame of being like, it's like, you have to work. This is kind of maybe I think Kafka might have been actually right on the nose with this one. In the sense that he's like detailing maybe a little bit not too far in the kind of in the residue of having, you know, the Industrial Revolution and that type of thing. Maybe, you know, like it definitely wasn't a glamorous job what Rossman has here as a lift boy. He's like running around, he's working like I think 12-hour days or something like that. So it's definitely not something that's like, you know, envious to have. So he's working this job and trying to just like, you know, I think he's like bunking in the hotel because he can't, you know, that's like, yeah, that's our little pittance we give you, is like you can eat, you know, leftover bread and this and that, and you can bunk in our hotel, like an extra room for lobby boys. And yeah, it's like kind of just, this is where it gets Dickensian as well, too. It's like kind of, you know, abject poverty, people working, you know, young kids working these jobs. So yeah, that, and there's also Robinson and Delmark show up again, and basically a drunk, both of them are drunk, or I think one of them is so drunk that he passes out, and then basically just like shows up at like their Roseman's footsteps, or at this in his own workplace, and are just like, you know, like he needs a place to bunk, and then he like takes him off to bunk. I thought it was pretty funny because it's like so like ridiculous, like how it's like something that you imagine very well could happen, but like is like so almost like outlandish to an unrealistic, you know, but then again, you kind of think about the things that do happen in real life, and it's like kind of like, you know, Murphy's Law. So that happens, and then he actually gets, because of the shame, there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of like taboo about lift boys, and like they're like not allowed to do this or the XYZ. So like start class differences between, you know, the higher ups there, like, you know, you can't put this guy in, you know, this drunk wandering you know, kid in your bunk him in your room, so we have to get rid of you. So that happens, and he, from the hero Roseman, there's another part where it's like, I think this character, her name is Grinelda, I think, is like they offer to like stay at her place, and she's basically kind of like, I don't know if she's like in a relationship with one of either Robinson or Delmark, but like it's like she's kind of like described to be almost like grotesque in a way, but like he's just like very kind of obnoxious and like, you know, avaricious, and like just, you know, like leaves nothing to the imagination, just like, you know. But like I think basically at the last second he's able to kind of escape from that, you know, kind of scene, and he's like, he sees hope when he sees like this place for the traveling. It's like it's called the Nature Theater, I think, or the Nature Theater of Oklahoma, I think, is what he goes into, and it's basically, it's I think it was like a fancier term for the circus, and again, this is like the, you know, 1910s or something, so it's like it's definitely very much possible that, you know, the circus was like still a thing, and you know, and you see that too in the Hunger Artist too, like you know, the man going on these great hunger, you know, fasts, and you know, like that, these great feats and stuff like that were of the human spirit in the flesh, you know, like a lot of that was very kind of like in vogue, I think. So I think that Kafka saw that and kind of like saw that kind of like as a double-edged sword, maybe, like he saw that as like it could be exploitive, but at the same time offer new hope and like kind of possibility. So like I think he sees this place, or Roseman sees the Oklahoman theater, and he's like sees promise, and he's like, you know, he signs up for it, and he's like he adopts his like stage name, and then he goes off with like some, on a good note, and I think that's where it ends, as far as her, yeah, it ends, yeah, I liked how, it was definitely a bit of a different read, definitely a bit of different thing. I think there actually is a real place that I looked up, called the Nature Theater of Oklahoma, and I think it might just be called, it might be named that post, you know, Kafka, you know, in like honor of his, in honor of his thing, I think. So I thought that was, yeah, overall very interesting read. Definitely not quite as dark, like I said, as say the castle gets kind of chaotic and like very not spurless, but like just very heady and like down and like circuitous and impressionistic, maybe might be the right word. And this is just kind of like, you know, it's just interesting, just, you know. There's not as much like stylistic in it. So, and some people might like that, some people might not. So, I did. I mean, I wouldn't say it's like necessarily my favorite Kafka novel, but seeing as how I think like his main 3 novels that saw the light of day, like The Castle, The Trial, and this, I think like, yeah, definitely worth a read. So, thank you for watching.